Have you ever wondered why two people face the same obstacle, yet one rises stronger while the other gives up? Why does one person see a dead end while another sees a doorway? The answer is not luck, not talent, and not circumstance. The answer is in the mind. The truth is simple. Your mind is your greatest asset, or your greatest prison. The way you think shapes the way you act, and the way you act shapes the life you build. I, Napoleon Hill, discovered this truth early in my journey. And let me tell you, it was not in moments of clarity or comfort that I uncovered the power of the mind. No. It was in moments of fear, fog, and uncertainty. Because mental mastery does not begin when the road is straight and easy. It begins when you decide to walk forward, even when you cannot see what lies ahead. The trap of the comfort zone. Imagine a warm blanket on a cold night. That is your comfort zone. It feels safe, predictable, and familiar. But stay under it too long, and it becomes a trap. Your comfort zone whispers to you, "Stay here. Don't risk. Don't change." And for a while, that feels fine. But after some time, the blanket that once gave warmth begins to suffocate growth. Life is not meant to be lived standing still. Growth does not happen where you are comfortable. Growth happens at the edge, where fear stirs, where uncertainty lingers, and where you are not quite sure if you can succeed. The first step beyond. Let me share a story. There was a young man I once mentored. Let's call him John. John was bright, full of ideas, and had dreams larger than life. But he lived inside a shell. He was terrified of speaking in public. His knees shook, his palms sweated, and his mind went blank every time he imagined a crowd. Yet deep inside, John had a burning goal. He wanted to be a leader, to inspire others, to share his vision. But how could he lead if he could not speak? I told John the secret. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is action in spite of fear. So John began small. One day, he forced himself to raise his hand in a meeting of just 5 people. His voice trembled, but he spoke anyway. Weeks later, he introduced a guest speaker at a small gathering. His heart pounded, but he smiled through it. Months later, he gave his first 5-minute talk before an audience of 50. What had once been terror became a new strength. John discovered what I want you to understand right now. Confidence is not given, it is built, one step at a time. Why stepping out feels so hard, you might ask. Why does it feel so painful to grow? Because your mind is wired for survival, not for success. The human brain is built to protect you from discomfort. It warns you. Don't risk. Don't fail. Don't step outside. That instinct once kept our ancestors alive. But in modern life, that same instinct can hold you hostage. It can keep you repeating the same patterns, living the same year over and over, never reaching the life you dream of. The secret is this: you must learn to choose growth over comfort, progress over fear, courage over hesitation. The power of small steps. Most people think growth means giant leaps. That's a lie. Growth is built in small, deliberate steps. Maybe for you, it's as simple as speaking up once in a meeting. Maybe it's trying a new skill you've always been curious about. Maybe it's changing your daily routine, just to break the chain of repetition. Every time you do something small that stretches you, you are training your mind to be stronger. What was once terrifying becomes normal. What was once impossible becomes achievable. And each step expands your comfort zone, the hidden door of opportunity. Let me ask you this. When you look back on your life, will you treasure the moments when you played it safe? Or will you treasure the moments when your knees shook, but you took the step anyway? The moments you remember, the ones that shape your destiny, are always the ones when you walked through fear. That is where magic lives. That is where opportunities hide. That is where the real story of your life begins. Think of the runner who completes a marathon. It all began with one first jog, slow and painful. Think of the painter whose masterpiece hangs in a gallery. It all began with one messy brushstroke on a blank canvas. Think of the leader who inspires nations. It all began with one bold decision made in uncertainty. Every story of greatness begins with one choice: to push beyond what feels safe. Your first challenge. So I give you this challenge. This week, take one step beyond your comfort zone. Just one. It does not need to be dramatic. It only needs to stretch you. Speak when you usually stay silent. Try something new, even if you stumble. Face a fear, even if your voice shakes. Write it down. Commit to it. And when you succeed, Even in the smallest way, recognize that you are not the same person you were yesterday, because growth is not about giant leaps. Growth is about consistent steps. And each step rewires your mind to expect more, to believe more, and to achieve more. The road ahead, this is the beginning. Part 1 of your journey. In the next part, I will show you how to set goals that ignite your spirit, goals that light you up so much that no obstacle can hold you back. But first, you must answer this question for yourself. Will you choose comfort, or will you choose growth? The decision is yours. White heavy check mark. That's part 1, 1,000 words, in story style, simple language, American reader, friendly, with Napoleon Hill's voice woven in. You want me to continue writing part 2, about setting goals that light you up, right away? Master your mind, the hidden key to turning obstacles into opportunities. Part 2, building resilience, belief, passion, and adaptability. The hook. When life knocks you down, let me ask you a question. Have you ever been knocked flat by life, so hard that you thought you'd never rise again? A plan crumbled. A dream slipped through your fingers. A loss left you gasping for air. In those moments, it feels as if the world has conspired against you. But here's the truth I learned in my years of study. Failure is never the end, it is the test. Life will push you, bend you, and even break parts of you. But resilience, belief in yourself, passion with discipline, and the ability to adapt, these are the qualities that turn storms into stepping stones. This, my friend, is how ordinary people grow into extraordinary leaders of their own destiny. Resilience, growing stronger in the storm. Resilience is not pretending everything is fine. It is not plastering on a smile when your heart aches. No, resilience is the quiet voice that says, "This will not break me. I will rise." I once knew a man who built a small business from scratch. He worked day and night, and after years of sacrifice, he finally felt stable. Then, without warning, he lost his biggest customer. Overnight, his income vanished. At first, he was crushed. Days passed with doubt gnawing at his spirit. But then something remarkable happened. He decided that this would not be the end of his story. Instead of folding, he studied what went wrong. He improved his services. He sought out new clients. Months later, he had replaced his lost customer with 2 new ones, each paying more than the first. The failure that nearly destroyed him became the turning point that lifted him higher than before. That is resilience. Not avoiding the storm, but learning to sail through it. Not being unshaken, but finding strength because of the shaking. Every time you choose to rise after falling, your resilience grows. And each new storm feels less impossible, because you remember, I survived before. I can survive again. Believing in your potential. Breaking invisible walls. Now let me tell you about the invisible prison that traps more people than any iron bars ever could. That prison is self-doubt. You see, many people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they never try. They convince themselves they are not ready, not worthy, not capable. They build walls in their own minds, and those walls feel real. But here's the secret. Belief in your potential tears those walls down. Consider the young woman who dreamed of writing a book. For years she whispered to herself, "I'm not a real writer." That belief kept her silent. One day, however, she decided to test herself. She committed to writing a few hundred words each day. At first, the words were clumsy, and her doubts screamed louder than her confidence. But she kept going. Weeks passed. Pages piled up. One morning, she held a completed manuscript in her hands. She didn't build her belief first, she built it through action. Each word, each page, each small step proved to her that she could. This is the truth. Self-belief grows only when you step forward despite fear. When you stop saying, "I can't," and begin saying, "I am learning how." Passion with discipline. The fire and the hammer. Passion is the spark that lights the fire. Discipline is the hammer that shapes the metal. Alone, either is enough. Together, they forge greatness. Think of a gardener who dreams of a yard full of flowers and vegetables. At the start, passion drives him. He plants seeds eagerly, dreaming of beauty and harvest. But weeks pass, and excitement fades. Now the work is repetitive, watering, weeding, guarding against pests. If he relies only on passion, he quits. But if he brings discipline to his passion, he keeps showing up. Slowly, green shoots rise. Flowers bloom. Vegetables ripen. his dream becomes real. The same is true of musicians, writers, leaders, and builders. Passion ignites you, but discipline keeps you going when the fire flickers. Every great achievement is born of this marriage, the thrill of passion, carried forward by the steadiness of discipline. Adaptability, bending without breaking. Finally, there is adaptability, the ability to bend without breaking, to pivot without losing direction. Life does not move in straight lines. The seasons change. Circumstances shift. The tools you rely on may disappear. And if you cling too tightly to how it was supposed to be, you risk getting stuck. I recall an old craftsman who had mastered his trade with traditional tools. One day, those tools became unavailable. At first, he thought his life's work was over. But instead of quitting, he chose to learn a new method. It was awkward, difficult, and slower at first. But over time, he discovered the new method allowed him to create things he never could before. What looked like the end of his craft became the beginning of his best work. That is adaptability, not abandoning your dream, but finding a new road when the old one disappears. The lesson of part 2. So what do we learn from these stories? Resilience turns storms into strength. Belief shatters the prison of self-doubt. Passion with discipline turns excitement into lasting success. Adaptability keeps your dream alive. Even when the world changes. These are not theories. They are practical truths proven in the lives of countless men and women who refused to stop when life tested them. Your challenge for this week. Here is your challenge. 1. Write down one past struggle you overcame. Remind yourself of the strength you already carry. Point 2. Take one action, no matter how small, that stretches your belief in yourself. Point 3. Commit to showing up daily for one passion, even when you don't feel inspired. Point 4. Identify one area of your life where change is happening. Instead of resisting, ask, how can I adapt? Do these things, and you will feel your inner strength grow. The road ahead. This is part 2 of our journey. We have faced storms, shattered doubt, balanced passion with discipline, and learned to adapt. But there is more. In part 3, I will show you how to use faith and persistence as unshakable pillars to achieve the impossible. The road is long, but every step you take makes you stronger. Keep walking. Keep believing. Keep building. Because success is not found in ease, it is forged in resilience. White heavy check mark. That's part 2, fully rewritten in Napoleon Hill's motivational story style, around 1,000 words, clear and simple for American readers, with a strong hook and narrative flow. Would you like me to move straight into part 3, faith and persistence, the unshakable pillars of success, now? Part 3, the turning point of change. It was a rainy Tuesday morning when David sat in his car, staring at the gray clouds above. He had just come out of a meeting where his boss told him that the company was moving in a new direction, and his position would soon no longer exist. For years, David had given his energy, his ideas, and his time to that company. Now, in a single conversation, it was gone. At first, the change felt like a punch to the chest. He gripped the steering wheel, asking himself, why me? Why now? How will I start over? The unknown scared him more than anything else. But later that evening, as he sat with a notebook open on his kitchen table, he remembered something his grandfather once told him. Life will keep changing, David. You can't control that. But you can control how you meet it. That night, for the first time, he asked himself a different question. What can this change give me? And that question became the turning point. The power of adaptability. In the weeks that followed, David discovered something surprising. Losing his job was not just an ending, it was an opening. He began exploring new skills, attending workshops, and even trying out freelance work. Every new challenge felt uncomfortable at first, but each time he adapted, he grew stronger. He realized adaptability is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Instead of breaking under the pressure of change, he bent, adjusted, and reshaped his path. Slowly, the fear of the unknown started to fade. He no longer saw change as something that stole from him. He began to see it as a teacher, giving him chances to grow in ways he never imagined. The quiet force of daily action. At first, David wanted to rebuild his life overnight. He thought about launching a business, writing a book, or moving to another city all at once. But the distance between where he was and where he wanted to be felt overwhelming. Then one morning, while jogging in the park, he noticed a group of runners training for a marathon. None of them looked like they were sprinting. They were simply putting one foot in front of the other, steady and consistent. That's when it clicked. He didn't need to leap across the mountain in one giant jump. He only needed to take one steady step at a time. So, he made a promise to himself. Every day, I'll take at least one small action toward my future. Some days, it was learning a new skill online. Other days, it was writing down ideas for his business or reaching out to a mentor. None of these steps looked big on their own, but after weeks and months, the progress was undeniable. The small daily actions became habits. The habits built momentum. And soon, momentum gave him confidence that he was moving in the right direction. Learning from experience, not everything worked out perfectly. Some of his new ideas failed. One side project he started barely lasted a month before falling apart. At first, he felt embarrassed, tempted to see it as wasted time. But instead of hiding from failure, he began asking himself, "What can this teach me?" That shift in perspective turned every mistake into a stepping stone. When his first project failed, he realized he hadn't researched his customers well enough. Lesson learned. The second time, he took the time to study his audience, and the results were far better. He began to see that both success and failure were valuable teachers. Success showed him what worked. Failure showed him where he needed to grow. And together they pushed him forward. The circle that shapes you. As David worked on rebuilding his life, he noticed something else. The people around him mattered more than he realized. Some of his old friends, though well-meaning, always told him, "It's too risky. Maybe you should just get another regular job and forget these dreams." Their words drained his energy, leaving him full of doubt. But then he met new people, through workshops, networking events, and even at the local library, who thought differently. These were people who believed in growth, who encouraged his ideas, who reminded him of his strengths when he forgot them. Being around uplifting people changed everything. Their support became fuel. Their belief in him gave him courage on the days when his own belief wavered. He realized the truth. The voices you hear most often, whether from others or from yourself, shape your future. And if you surround yourself with the right people, you carry their strength with you. The new beginning. Months later, David stood in front of a small group of clients, presenting the strategy for the business he had built from the ground up. He wasn't the same man who once sat in his car feeling lost. He had become adaptable, confident, and resilient. He learned the value of small daily actions, the wisdom in failure, and the power of uplifting relationships. The change that once felt like a loss had become the doorway to a better chapter. And the truth was clear: when you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "Where can this take me?" you unlock the power to turn every change into a new beginning. White heavy check mark. That's part 3, written in story form, around 1,000 words, simple and engaging, American-friendly, following Napoleon Hill's teaching style. Would you like me to continue with part 4 in the same storytelling format? Part 4. The discipline of the climb. The morning sun poured through the window as David laced up his shoes. It had been nearly a year since the day he lost his job, and life looked different now. He had built new routines, discovered new strengths, and even started his own business. Yet, on this particular morning, his energy was low. The excitement that once fueled him had faded. The thrill of starting fresh had given way to the grind of daily effort. His mind whispered, "Maybe it's too hard. Maybe this isn't working." He sat down at the edge of his bed, staring at the floor. That's when he remembered a piece of advice he once read in an old book. Success is not about doing one great thing once. It's about doing small things consistently over time. And in that quiet moment, David realized the secret he had been searching for all along: discipline. The hidden strength of daily discipline. David thought back to the days when he first began jogging in the park. In the beginning, even running a mile left him gasping for air. But by showing up every morning, step by step, his body grew stronger. Business and life, he realized, worked the same way. The secret wasn't in sudden bursts of effort. It was in showing up daily, no matter how he felt. Discipline was not about feeling motivated every day. It was about keeping promises to himself even on the days he didn't feel like it. That was the difference between dreamers and achievers. Dreamers acted only when it felt good. Achievers acted whether it felt good or not. The mountain lesson. One weekend, David decided to go hiking with a group of friends. The trail they chose led to the top of a mountain, a climb that stretched for miles. At first, the group was excited, moving quickly with laughter and energy. But halfway up, the trail grew steep. Their legs burned. The sun grew hot. Some of his friends began complaining. A few turned back. David felt the same urge. The peak looked impossibly far, and his body begged him to stop. But then he remembered his promise to himself. One step at a time. So he kept moving. Slow. Steady. Disciplined. He stopped looking at the peak and focused only on the next step, and then the next. Hours later, when he finally reached the top, the view was breathtaking. The entire valley stretched before him, golden in the afternoon light. Standing there, he understood something deeper. Success in life was no different from climbing that mountain. You don't get there by sprinting at the start. You get there by staying disciplined, step after step, even when the climb feels endless. The battle within. Back in his business, David noticed a pattern. His biggest challenges weren't from outside obstacles. They came from within, his doubts, his distractions, his excuses. There were days when the couch felt more inviting than his desk. Days when fear whispered, "What if you fail?" Days when comparison made him think, "Others are ahead of you. Why keep trying?" But he discovered that discipline was the weapon that silenced those inner battles. Every time he showed up despite resistance, he grew stronger. Every time he kept his word to himself, his confidence grew. And slowly, discipline became less of a burden and more of a habit, a part of who he was. The ripple effect of small actions. One evening, as David reviewed his progress, he was surprised. The results didn't come from one single breakthrough. They came from hundreds of small, steady efforts that stacked on top of one another. Writing a little every day grew into a full business plan. Making one phone call led to new clients. Reading a few pages daily filled his mind with new ideas. Saving a little each week built into real financial security. It reminded him of a snowball rolling down a hill. At first, it was small, almost unnoticeable. But with each turn, it gathered more snow, growing bigger and stronger until nothing could stop it. That was the power of consistent daily discipline. Learning to begin anyway. David also realized something else. Waiting for the perfect moment was a trap. Early on, he used to delay projects, thinking, "I'll start when I feel ready. I'll begin when things calm down." But life never truly calmed down. There was always another distraction, another excuse, another reason to wait. So he made a rule for himself. Start now, with what you have. Even if the first step was messy, even if he wasn't fully prepared, he began. And almost every time, momentum carried him forward once he was in motion. The lesson was clear: success doesn't wait for perfect conditions. Success begins the moment you decide to take the first imperfect step. A story of the runner. One day, David met a young man at the gym who dreamed of running a marathon. The young man confessed, "I tried running the whole distance once, but I failed. I don't think I'm cut out for it." David smiled and shared what he had learned. You don't run a marathon by trying to finish it on day one. You train. You build. You add a little each day. Small steps, repeated with discipline, will take you further than one giant effort. Months later, that same young man completed his first marathon, not because he made one big leap, but because he showed up daily, step by step. David saw himself in that runner, and the story reminded him once again of the power of persistence. The habit that builds champions. By the end of the year, David had built something more valuable than a business. He had built the habit of discipline. It carried him through days of doubt. It gave him confidence in times of uncertainty. And it became the foundation for every new success. He realized that discipline was not punishment. It was freedom, the freedom to trust himself, to keep moving forward, to turn dreams into reality. And as he looked back on his journey, he understood something Napoleon Hill had once taught. The person who moves forward with persistence, despite difficulty, will always arrive at success. The lesson of Part 4. Life is not about one-time leaps. It's about the steady climb. When you train your discipline, when you take consistent daily actions, when you choose persistence over excuses, you become unstoppable. The world will throw obstacles at you. Your own mind will whisper doubts. But if you keep stepping forward, one day you'll look back and realize you've climbed mountains you once thought were impossible. And at the top, the view will be worth every step. White heavy check mark. That's Part 4, about discipline, daily consistency, persistence, and overcoming inner battles. written in a storytelling style, around 1,000 words, simple and inspiring for American readers. Would you like me to move on and write Part 5 next in the same format? Part 5. Rising Stronger Through Adversity. The storm came without warning. David had just begun to feel steady in his business when disaster struck. A shipment he depended on was delayed for months. A key client backed out of a contract. Unexpected bills piled high. In a single week, everything he had worked for felt like it was crumbling. One evening, he sat at his desk, head in his hands, staring at the numbers that didn't add up. Fear clawed at his chest. His old doubts came back. Maybe this was all a mistake. Maybe I should have stayed safe. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. For the first time in months, he felt like giving up. But then, a quiet thought broke through the noise. Every great success story has a moment like this. The question is not whether you face hardship. The question is whether you rise through it. The test of true strength. David remembered reading how Napoleon Hill studied some of the most successful men of his time. They all had one thing in common, not wealth, not talent, but resilience. It wasn't that they avoided failure. It was that they used failure as fuel. They turned setbacks into stepping stones. And David realized, this storm was not the end of his story. It was a test. The fall and the rise. The next morning, he decided not to quit. Instead of drowning in the problem, he began searching for solutions. He called other suppliers until he found one who could deliver, even if it cost more. He reached out to old clients, offering them new deals. He cut back on unnecessary expenses. It wasn't easy. Some days, progress was small, almost invisible. But every time he pushed forward, he felt his spirit grow stronger. Slowly, the storm began to calm. The bills got paid. New clients came in. The weight began to lift. Looking back later, David realized that the moment he thought would break him had actually built him. The storm had tested his resilience, and proved he had more strength than he knew. The farmer's story. One evening, David shared his struggles with an older friend who had once been a farmer. The farmer nodded and said, "Let me tell you something, son. When a storm hits the farm, crops get damaged, fences break, and sometimes livestock is lost. It hurts. But the storm also teaches you how strong your land is. You learn where the soil is richest. You learn which plants can withstand the wind. And you learn how to rebuild stronger than before. Life works the same way. Storms will come. You can curse them, or you can let them teach you how to grow stronger." Those words stuck with David. The diamond lesson. David later read another story about diamonds. A diamond is just a piece of coal that survived immense pressure and heat. Without the crushing weight and fire, it would remain ordinary. Resilience, he realized, was the same. Without pressure, without struggle, you never discover the diamond within you. Adversity wasn't a punishment, it was the very process that shaped greatness. A personal breakthrough. One of David's toughest challenges came when a new competitor moved into his town. They had more money, more resources, and more connections. At first, David felt defeated. How could he compete with that? But instead of giving in, he decided to look at it differently. If they're stronger in resources, I'll be stronger in creativity. If they can spend more, I'll serve better. If they move fast, I'll move smart. This shift in mindset fueled him. He built closer relationships with his customers. He personalized his service. He created new offers the competitor didn't think of. Within a year, his business not only survived but grew. The competitor remained, but David carved out his own space, proving that resilience beats resources when the heart is determined. Learning to bend without breaking. Resilience doesn't mean you never feel pain. David had plenty of nights where he felt tired, anxious, and afraid. But resilience meant he didn't stay there. He learned to bend without breaking. When plans failed, he adjusted. When people doubted him, he believed in himself anyway. When results were slow, he kept moving forward. And each time he endured, his confidence deepened. He began to see adversity not as an enemy, but as a teacher. The story of the phoenix. One night, while journaling, David wrote down an image that came to him. The phoenix. The phoenix is a legendary bird that burns to ashes when it dies. But from those very ashes, it rises again, stronger, brighter, renewed. That's what resilience truly is. Not avoiding the fire, but rising from it. David realized that every setback he had faced, the job loss, the failures, the storm in his business, had been his fire. And each time, he had risen from the ashes, not weaker, but stronger. The turning point months later, David was invited to speak at a local community event about entrepreneurship. Standing before the audience, he shared his story openly, the failures, the doubts, the storms, and the lessons that he told them. Do not fear adversity. It is the hammer that shapes you, the fire that refines you, the storm that tests you. Without it, you will never know how strong you truly are. When he finished, people applauded, not because he spoke of easy success, but because he spoke of resilience, the very quality everyone secretly knew they needed. The lesson of Part 5: adversity is not a wall meant to stop you. It is a doorway meant to grow you. Storms will come. Failures will sting. Plans will fall apart. But when you choose resilience, you rise stronger every time. Life is not about avoiding hardship, it's about mastering it. And when you learn to stand tall through the storm, you become unshakable. Just as Napoleon Hill once taught, every adversity carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. If you believe that truth, then no storm can ever truly defeat you. Why heavy checkmark? That's Part 5, about resilience, adversity, and rising stronger, written as a motivational story in Napoleon Hill style, around 1,000 words, in simple, engaging language for American readers. Would you like me to now prepare the final Part 6, the conclusion, tying all lessons together into one powerful ending? Part 6. The master key to your future. The sun was just beginning to rise when David stood on the porch of his home, coffee in hand, looking at the golden light spilling across the fields. It had been years since that stormy day in his car when he thought his world was falling apart. Years since the doubts, the fears, and the crushing weight of uncertainty. Now, he stood not only with a thriving business but with a deeper treasure, the knowledge of how to live with strength, purpose, and unshakable confidence. He realized that everything he had faced, the job loss, the failures, the setbacks, had been part of his training. Life had not been punishing him. Life had been preparing him. And in that moment, he understood something vital. The true master key to success was not luck, nor talent, nor even intelligence. It was the decision to keep going. To adapt, to act, to learn, to believe, to surround himself with the right people, and to rise again every time he fell. This, he realized, was resilience. And resilience, combined with faith and discipline, was unstoppable. Looking back at the journey, David often thought of the 6 truths that shaped his life. 1. Build resilience through adversity. Storms will come, but every storm carries a lesson that makes you stronger. 2. Believe in your own potential. Your greatest limits are the walls you build in your own mind. 3. Pursue passion with discipline. Passion starts the fire. Discipline keeps it burning. 4. Adapt to life's changes. Flexibility turns endings into beginnings. 5. Take consistent daily action. Success is built in small steps, repeated faithfully. 6. Surround yourself with uplifting people. The right voices give you courage when your own is weak. Each part of the journey had been necessary. Each lesson had been a stepping stone. The final test, but life wasn't finished with David. Even as he stood stronger, new challenges appeared. Economic shifts, unexpected losses, and new competitors. The difference now was that he no longer feared them. Where once he saw problems, he now saw opportunities. Where once he saw endings, he now saw beginnings. He had become, in every sense of the word, resilient. Like the oak tree that bends with the wind but does not break, he had learned the secret of lasting strength, faith in himself, discipline in his habits, courage in adversity, and gratitude for the people who lifted him higher. The Napoleon Hill truth. One evening, David reread a passage from Napoleon Hill that had guided him many times. Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. He closed the book and whispered to himself, "That's it. That's the key. Adversity is not my enemy, it's my greatest teacher." And from that day forward, he began teaching others what he had learned. The ripple effect. David started mentoring young entrepreneurs. He didn't sugarcoat the journey. He told them plainly, "You will fail. You will be tested. You will feel like quitting. But if you choose resilience, if you keep moving forward no matter what, you will not only survive, you will thrive." And something magical happened. As he gave away what he had learned, his own success multiplied. His business grew. His influence spread. His life felt fuller than ever before. Because true success, he realized, is not just about what you achieve for yourself, it's about the impact you leave on others. Your call to greatness now. Let me turn this lesson to you, the reader. You may be standing at a crossroads right now. Maybe life has knocked you down. Maybe fear whispers that you are not enough. Maybe the mountain in front of you feels too high to climb. But hear this clearly. You already have within you everything you need to rise. Resilience is not something you are born with. It is something you build. One choice at a time. One step at a time. One day at a time. When adversity strikes, remind yourself, this is not the end of me. This is the beginning of a stronger chapter. When doubt creeps in, tell yourself, I believe in my own potential. I may not know everything now, but I can learn. When passion fades, lean on discipline. When plans change, adapt. When the path feels long, take small daily actions. And when you feel weak, surround yourself with those who lift you higher. This is the master key. This is the way forward. The legacy of resilience. Imagine yourself 5 years from now. You look back and realize that the challenges you thought would break you were the very things that shaped you into someone powerful, wise, and unshakable. Your story becomes an inspiration to others, not because it was easy, but because you refused to quit. That is the legacy resilience leaves behind. Final words. David's story is not unique. It is the story of every man or woman who refuses to be defined by failure. It is the story of every dreamer who refuses to give up. And it can be your story too. The storms of life will come. But if you keep your faith, keep your discipline, keep your resilience, you will not just survive them. You will rise through them. And when you rise, you will discover the truth Napoleon Hill spent his life teaching. The seed of greatness is already within you. It only needs the fire of adversity to make it grow. So rise. Keep moving. Keep believing. Keep building your story. One step, one lesson, one victory at a time. Because your greatest chapter is still ahead. Sparkle's call to action. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Backhand index pointing right. Subscribe for more powerful life lessons. Backhand index pointing right. Share this story with someone who needs hope today. Backhand index pointing right. Leave a comment with your thoughts. Your story could inspire someone else to rise stronger. Together, we can build a community of resilience, faith, and success. White heavy check mark. That's part 6. The final chapter, around 1,000 words, written in Napoleon Hill's storytelling style, with a clear call to action at the end.